Today is really shaping up to be the perfect day to give these horses some baths. But before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and start to shed out these guys. There are a few different tools you can use, but I like this one the best for when they really start losing their hair. It's basically just a little metal blade with some serrated teeth in it, and it really snags the hair and pulls it out quite well. Little Gus had a decent amount of hair come out, and let's see how much Stewie has. It is always the most satisfying to get all of the hair off their little booties. Since it's been pretty warm off and on, I think a lot of these horses aren't quite sure if they should be losing their hair yet. I was totally surprised when I went to go do Pete. His hair looked pretty slick down, so I thought he had lost most of his winter hair. But he had so much more than Stewie and Little Gus. When I shed these guys out, I just kind of run this tool over them until hair stops coming out. This will continue for a couple of days until I'm able to get it all. Some of the horses will lose it all in one day, and Nigel is one of those. I am going to do a totally separate video for him because his hair is completely crazy when it finally comes out. Pete has a pretty good pile going. Any of you guys who were here during the really cold snap, you can probably see now how they can stay a little bit warmer than horses that aren't used to it. Their thick winter coats really add a lot of insulation. You'll be able to see a huge difference between these horses and the ones that I keep in the barn for a lot of the winter. They just don't have nearly as much hair as the outside horses.
Oh, Pete. All right, buddy.
Poor Pete caught how ridiculous I looked with the GoPro on my head, and it gave him a little bit of a scare. He just needed a little extra time to figure out what the heck I was doing with this thing on my head. And after some investigation, he didn't quite mind it too much. Next up, we have Big Gus. I was also really surprised with how much hair I got out of him. His hair coat this time of year is pretty bristly, and he does get a little bit on the crusty side. He is one that really improves as soon as they get out on grass in the spring. It is supposed to be pretty nice today, but it seems like there's a storm coming in. I am usually pretty good about keeping this stuff out of my mouth, but sometimes when the wind changes, you just can't avoid it. Whiplash had an extremely thick winter coat this year, which is great because he is getting older. He is coming out of winter pretty good. He didn't lose too much weight. Since it gets so cold, I like to keep these guys a little on the plump side. It also kind of helps weigh them down when I go to start riding them in the spring. As they start going back to work and then get turned out on the grass, they will slim down pretty quickly. Whiplash kind of seems like a giant teddy bear in the winter. I have a feeling it's going to take him a week or two to finally shed out all of this hair. Even when I was done with him today, he still looked like he had tons of winter hair left. Every time I thought I was done, I would go back in and more hair would just keep coming out of him. It does make me a tiny bit worried because we are supposed to be getting some more snow in the next couple of days. Hopefully it won't stick around very long because these guys might get a little bit chilled after I take all their winter hair out. I always forget how red Goose is in the spring and summertime until I shed him out. These next horses are all ones that were in the barn for the winter. They, of course, had access to their run, so they could go in and out as they please. Skeletor isn't losing much winter hair, but he does have these little dingleberries by his elbows. If you go to ride your horse in the spring and they have these in the girth area, it can really cause a lot of problems. Skeletor has really fine, soft hair, and it just kind of gets tangled up together when it's starting to come out. Studman and Skeletor get brushed pretty much every day while they're inside, so their winter hair has been coming out in little bits over the last couple weeks. I spent some extra time loving on Studman the last couple of days because he was sick. Frisco Bill is also on the spoiled side. He's already had 2 baths this spring because he gets really sensitive to fungus and different skin issues, so I make sure to get him washed as soon as possible. When I got Prim out, I could not believe how much she has changed in color. She has these crazy dapples, and then I noticed this year she has a ton of white hairs in her mane, which she did not have before. Since she is registered and she is a mayor, I will get some genetic testing done on her before she goes to her new home. A lot of people go crazy for buckskins, and it might be cool to see exactly what kind of genetic marker she has for color, so I might do that as well. I think she is a really nice horse regardless, but a lot of people are interested in the whole color coat genetics. This water is coming right out of my hydrants, but it is not cold. I have a really fancy top of the line water heating system I'll show you guys in a little bit. But this time of year it is definitely necessary if I want the horses to stand nicely while I wash them. These horses do a lot of rolling around in the mud and nasty poop piles, so some of them can get fungus. This year I have only seen a spot or 2 on some of them, so that is really nice. This shampoo reduces itchiness if their skin is irritated from their coat coming out. And I am just going to give her a good scrub on her top line because that's usually where they have the most problems. The base of their mane and then right along the top of their back, dirt seems to like settle in. I have a limited amount of time with warm water, so for their very first bath, they're just going to get a quick once over. Since these guys still have a lot of their winter coat left, it would just take me so long to get the soap out of every little nook and cranny, so this will have to do for their first bath of the season. Most of these horses, even the ones inside, don't get handled a ton over the winter. With so many extra chores to be done, I keep pretty busy just making sure these guys are staying comfortable and healthy. Besides getting their feet trimmed regularly and brushed every now and again, these guys pretty much just hang out all winter. Some of these horses will take a few days to get back in the swing of things, but Prim is always a very sensible girl and she has really good manners, so getting her bathed first was no big deal. My favorite coat conditioner to use on these horses is a laser sheen. I have had a lot of trouble with any oil-based products. Some of the horses can get allergic to it. Frisco Bill and Whiplash are both allergic to oil-based fly sprays and coat conditioners. This stuff will get a little slippery when it's dry, so when Prim goes to roll and poop again, hopefully it will just slide right off and she won't get disgusting. I still have quite a bit of warm water left, so I am going to do Little Gus next. These horses I will be tying back up before I turn them out. For some reason, if you can get them to dry before you turn them back out, they don't want to roll right away. So hopefully this will keep them from getting too dirty again. All of the horses actually look pretty clean right now. The big part of our mud season is over, so they really don't have anything too disgusting to lay down in. This soap you're supposed to dilute and then put it on the horse, but I just give them a little squirt and rub it in. While I was scrubbing down Gus, I noticed that his back was really sore. This is really important to notice before I go to start riding these guys. Little Gus usually does have quite a sore back after winter. He needs to get legged up and in better shape and get his body moving correctly before I even think about sitting on him. As you can imagine, if you were to put a saddle on him as he is now and then go to ride him, he would be extremely uncomfortable. A lot of people want to be able to just leave their horses off all winter and then go right out and trail ride them or get back into the arena. But most horses are going to need to be legged back up, which is just getting them back exercising so their body stays sound. These guys can get quite flabby just standing around over winter, which is not too different with what happens to people in Montana. Pretty much everybody I know has a set of winter clothes and then a set of summer clothes that are a few sizes smaller. I don't know if we appreciate summer more because we get less of it, but once summer hits, most people in Montana stay outside as much as possible, which has the added benefit of getting you fit pretty quickly. Every time I think about going to the gym to try and get in shape, I think that would be ridiculous. Pretty much all I have to do is start riding the horses again and I can trim up pretty quick. So the horses and I will pretty much be getting back in shape at the same time. In between bathing the horses, I am going to do a few chores. My trusty old four-wheeler is having some troubles these days. It keeps getting stuck into gear. I think the transmission might be going on it. I really was not expecting this old girl to last as long as she has. It looks like I'm running a little bit behind. My alarm to start the mashes just went off, but I want to show you guys how I heat up the water. I basically take all of the hoses that are on the property and just string them together. I turn the water on and it fills up the hose and then it gets hot in the sun. With the length of hose I have, I can wash one or sometimes two horses before it gets cold again if I am fast. But in between horses, I have plenty of chores I can do while I wait for the water to warm back up. I am gonna fuel back up the four-wheeler, and then I think I'm gonna go try and drag some of the dry lots. During the spring and summer, I like to drag them at least once a week. Breaking up the poop allows it to get hot enough in the sun that it destroys a lot of the things that could be troublesome to the horses. It would just be way too much for me to clean up all of the poop, so dragging it really gets it dispersed and keeps it looking tidy. And once I'm done with that, I should have enough hot water to continue with the horses' baths. Believe it or not, there is still ice under some of the poop piles, so I haven't been able to clean out all of the dry lots completely, but they are definitely looking a lot better than they were a few weeks ago. I think I may have made the drag a little bit too heavy today because it really tore up the ground. I could feel the little four-wheeler struggling a little bit. It sounded like she needed a few minutes to cool down, so I decided to go out and check and see how the little baby grasses were doing. It looks like these little guys are coming in pretty thick. Every time I fill up the horse's water trough, I let it overflow so these guys can get some extra water. And that seems to be really doing the trick. As soon as I got done dragging their dry lot, my GoPro shut off because it was too hot. I think it actually got around 70 degrees today, so for Montana in the springtime, that is really warm. Since all of the boys are kind of back in their routine already, they have no problem standing tied in the little arena. It usually takes Stewie quite a long time to start being serious about going back into work. He just likes to play and he kind of gets a little bit squirmy when I try to do things with him. It's really not too big of a deal, but he just kind of has a little bit of an immature mind still. He was not really interested in getting a bath, but he was interested in playing with the hose. I don't really have time for his shenanigans today, so I'm going to continue on hosing him down. I could certainly tie the horses up for this, but I think it's important to remind them how to stand still. When we're out and about, there are a lot of places we go that may not have a wash rack to hose off. So this can be a beneficial thing for them to remember. After dancing around for a little bit, Stewie finally decided that he was going to stand still at the tail end of our bath. As soon as he decided to stop, I took the water away just to let him know that that was actually what he was supposed to be doing. This is the shampoo I'm using. It's not sponsored. I just really like it. You guys can pause the video and scan the QR code if you want to know more about it. It's kind of funny. I have been getting a lot of emails to do brand deals and they are all really awful. I like you guys way too much to make you sit through some of the garbage that they're trying to get me to sell. I am extremely picky about the stuff I use on my horses. A lot of the brands I use, I've been using for a very, very long time. I recently went to open a new checking account, and the banker asked me if I was an influencer, and I think I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit. I don't know that I'm actually doing a lot of influencing other than maybe how to treat your horses a little bit kinder, which honestly is probably the kind of influencing that should be done more often. So rest assured, I am not going to try and get you guys to buy any green juice or weird vitamins. I am just so happy that you guys come and hang out with me and the horses every once in a while. I still try really hard to read all of the comments you guys leave. Sometimes it takes me a day or two or maybe three to catch up. But for now, I still really enjoy seeing what you guys have to say about the horses. Gus is pretty much dry, and it looks like Stewie is really wanting to roll after that bath. He is such a little turd. I thought for a minute that maybe he had something stuck in between his legs, which would be really odd because we don't have bugs out yet. I gave him a little scratch and I checked between his little butt cheeks too, just to make sure he didn't have any soap in there. But I'm pretty sure he just wants to roll now that he's clean. With all of his dancing around, he did use up all of the warm water, so I went in the barn and started in on some stalls.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Poor Frisco Bill is still scared of plastic bags sometimes. He is much too old to be scared of these things, but it's something that he has struggled with his entire life. He does have a blind spot in one eye, so I can't really blame him. Since I was in the barn, Tiny was convinced that it was time for her to get on the shaky plate, but I'm not quite ready for that yet. I still have a few more horses to wash. I also turned it on for her this morning and she laid down and took a nap on it, so I don't know how often I should be letting her on it. Since I bought it used, I don't have the user's manual, so I'm going to have to do some investigating online. I should have enough warm water for one more horse, and Gus has been patiently waiting for his turn. He was not 100% sure if he was allowed to come with me after I untied him. He can be a funny horse sometimes. He is a very reserved horse and kind of just keeps to himself. He is extremely good at reading people though. He is the kind of horse that if you're upset about something going on in your life, he gets upset as well. So whenever I'm having a bad day, I just do not handle him at all. If I'm upset, he thinks that I'm upset with him and he just has a little bit harder time getting handled. I decided to go ahead and put the soap on him before I hosed him off to hopefully save some water. He was one that was actually really, really clean, so he just got a little bit of a scrub down. This soap you're supposed to leave on them for a little while to do its work, but since these guys really aren't itchy, I'm just using it to get the dirt off. I haven't measured Gus in a while, but he's probably 15 hands, 15-1 maybe. For a lot of the people out here, he would be the perfect size horse. When I go to auctions, I can get a horse that's a little bit shorter, usually for cheaper, which is perfect for me because I actually like riding a little bit smaller horse. Frisco, Little Gus, Stewie, Whiplash, they are all around 14 hands. I really like a horse I can get on without a mounting block and that is not so tall I might rip my pants. So for me, 14 hands is about the perfect size. While I wait for the water to warm up again, I am going to clean out Scarlett's pen. And you guys are not going to believe how big she's gotten since last year. The last time I measured her, she was right around 14-1, and she has definitely grown since then. I am going to put Stewie in with her for some playtime pretty soon. And I am really excited to see how that goes down because he was bigger than her the last time they were turned out together. She has really just been hanging out all winter. I haven't worked her very much. I, of course, come in and clean up all of her turds when I can. When the weather was bad, she got to go in a stall in the barn, which she absolutely hated. The regular, everyday, normal handling has really helped her calm down, though. She loves to get scratches, and I can do a lot of things liberty with her. This is what she looked like at about the same time last year. I had just started working with her out in the round pen by herself. I am not used to feeding baby horses, so she has just been getting pretty much what all the other horses get. I have noticed that it looks like she really is wanting to grow a little bit more now. So, as we're coming into spring, I might tweak her diet a little bit. I have trimmed her feet a few times over the winter and she has gotten much, much better with that. She still is really hard to get a halter on. So every day I just switch it out and put a new one on, and hopefully after a while she'll get used to it. Tiny was after me to get back to chores so I could get her shaky plate turned on. After a quick snuggle session, I was back to work. I was hoping to get all of the horses bathed today, but the water has been taking a little bit longer to warm up. So it looks like Pete is going to be the last one that I'm going to be able to do today. His dapples are looking crazy now that he's got a lot of his winter coat gone. He is a little bit high strung, so he does really well on the alfalfa over the winter because he definitely needs the calories. Some of the other horses get a little bit too fat, but Pete stays nice and lean all winter. Pete made me pretty proud today because he was the best one for his bath. He wiggled around for a tiny little bit, but then he stood like a statue for me to spray him off and suds him up. I do think he may have been a little bit distracted by the neighbor who was doing some work in the neighboring field. But for having all winter off, he was a really good boy. I am in a kind of unique situation this year. Typically, I have some horses coming in and going out at the same time. But this spring, I have a lot of really young horses that haven't been ridden or have only been ridden 1 or 2 times that I need to bring along. So it should be a super fun, really busy, exciting spring for me. I have to start Prim and Studman. Skeletor is on vacation for the next year, but I do have to start Stewie. Pete and Goose have kind of been on the back burner for the last 2 summers. I have been really busy with a few other things and I really haven't gotten a lot of time to work them. So hopefully this spring and summer will be their time to shine. I wanted to show you guys some muscle damage that Pete has from when he was roped at the other trainer's place. When I bought him, it was a huge abscess. It doesn't bother him anymore, but when I very first got him, he was extremely sensitive around his flanks. With all of the baths done for the day, I'm going to turn on the sprinkler to this area. I did lay down some seeds, so hopefully they'll sprout up in no time. With all the boys vaccinated and washed up, I can now have a little more space in my brain to start thinking about getting new horses in. There is an auction coming up this weekend that I'm going to be bringing you guys along to. I don't really have my heart set on a certain type of horse. I don't think it's the right time for me to get another stud in or another really wild one. So I'll probably be looking for an older horse that maybe needs some maintenance. Perhaps they could be a friend for Skeletor to keep him calm and docile through his rehab. I never know what I'm going to find at auction, so it's good to have a few different plans in place. After cleaning everything up for the day, I am finally ready to head home. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and stay tuned for the next video.